So last week we had the Tableau prep session and we learned how to clean, modify, and customize the data that we have and prepare it for the visualization. In this week, we will get started to work with the Tableau desktop in order to actually create the visualization, charts, and plots based on the data that we have. In this section, we will go through the introductory and the basic options that are available in Tableau desktops. But in the next week, we will go to the intermediate and advanced options that are available in Tableau desktop. So the outline is shown in the website. I just put the link in the chat. Let me know if you have any problem accessing that website. So the outline is some introduction to the Tableau desktop. For example, what's the environment that we use for importing the data, creating the charts and plots, where we could see the charts and plots actually. And after that, we will jump onto the connecting Tableau desktop with our data. Similar to what we had last week for the Tableau prep, we use the local file, which means that the file is downloaded in your computer, and we just connect the Tableau desktop to the file that is downloaded in your computer. But in the next session, next week's, we will see how to connect Tableau desktop to the online servers as well, when you don't need to fetch or download any data locally in your machine. And then we will jump into the actual data visualization, creating charts and plots, and try to understand different options that are available in Tableau desktop. For example, how to create trend lines, combine various charts in a single view, or create new variables or tabular parameters that we could use for customized visualization. And at the end, we will go through a basic, creating a basic dashboard, putting the visualization in a basic dashboard that could be shared by the other users or the researchers. And at the end, a homework that you can just go through that and send me the results of the visualization until next Wednesday, June 9, and receive the certificate of completion or attendance of this workshop. So the prerequisite for the workshop is, of course, to download and install the Tableau desktop software. The link to download that is shown here, but I'm going to put that link into the chat as well. So if you click that, you can just download the free trial version. But in Clemson, we have a license for the Tableau desktop that just gives you a full access up to a year. So in order to sign up or register for the license that is available in Clemson University, you can just search for Tableau students and get Tableau for free. Click on that and just put your information, your first name, last name, make sure you use your Clemson email, and then you will receive a license that is valid for a year that could just give you access to the full options of the Tableau desktop. We went through this procedure last week for the Tableau prep, so it's exactly similar to what we did for last week. If you did it last week, you don't need to do it again. You can just use the license that you already received for Tableau desktop and Tableau prep both. It's just the same code or serial number that you can use it for both Tableau desktop and Tableau prep. So if you just went through this procedure last week, you don't need to do it again. You need to just send the visualization of the homework only, and after that you will receive the certificate. And sorry for the late reply of the for the certificates. Some of you just sent me an email and had some inquiry about the certificate. I'm just received a lot of visualization, so I'm trying to just go through all of them and just hopefully send the visual certificates as soon as possible. So sorry for late replies or if you didn't get any message from me. So sorry for that. Okay, so let's get back to the here for the prerequisite. As I said, we need to download and install the Tableau desktop, and hopefully you have that. And we have 3 different data sets here that we will use for the visualization in this workshop and the next weeks as well. So if you download these data sets this week, you don't need to download it next week for the next sessions or next workshops. So I'm going to put the links for these 3 different data sets into the chat, and you should be able to download them. So if you click on each of these links, you will direct it to a Google Drive sheet, and you can just download it here. Just click on download and you will download that. So I will do the same thing here. Yeah. So basically download these 3 different files. One is uscounties.csv, another one is sccounties.csv, and other one is the gacounties.csv. So I will wait a minute to make sure everybody downloaded the data set and had access to the software. And feel free to ask question, or if you have any issue or comment, just put in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask your questions. And please, if you just ask question in the chat, if you can just put it in the everyone, so if other people also would be able to see your question and might be helpful for them. Thank you. So I will wait a minute, and after that, we will jump into the first section of the Tableau desktop.
Can I ask a quick question?
So,
Already. So for the last homework, we had to delete the null values, but there were some that had like 80. If I deleted like the vaccinations or something like that, it would delete like 86% of the observations. So I was wondering, like, wouldn't it be better just to either remove the column or just impute some data, do some data imputation like 0 where it's null?
Actually, I got the question exactly same as you just asked here, and you need to just remove the null values for those variables I just gave you to just create for use it for the final data that you save. So if you just if you just, for example, remove the null values for that parameter that just remove, for example, 90 or 87% of the data. So you just, you don't need to remove those null values. So just remove or clean the null values from the columns that are requested for the final data that you want to save. Yeah, I just got that question before. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments, question? So if not, we will jump into the first section of Tableau desktop. So basically, last week we saw that with the Tableau prep, we were able to clean the data, modify the data, or even merge or join different data sets together and create a final file that we wanted to use it for data visualization in Tableau Desktop. Basically, Tableau Desktop is a really powerful platform for the general data visualization or data analytics. And even with it, it would be possible to create interactive dashboards that could be shared with other users. And even it could be embedded into the websites, and you can just share it. And I will show you how to create those dashboards. And we had some dashboards embedded in this website for the workshop materials. Some of the aspects of the data visualization in Tableau, which makes it really powerful and good for general data analytics and visualization, is that it's really user-friendly, and we will show later on that for creating visualization or charts or plots, you can just drag and drop different columns or different variables into the axis and just create the visualization really interactively with the graphical interface of the Tableau. It's really intuitive for the storytelling and creating the interactive dashboards. And as I said, it could create the dashboards, and those dashboards could be embedded into the websites, and even we could have a automatic dashboard that could be updated whenever the data is changed, if you have the data on any online server. So those are really advantages of using the Tableau desktop software, which makes it really powerful for the data analytics and data visualization. Okay, so if you open the software, the first window or the main menu that is shown here, the open is just show you the past files that you might use here for visualization. If you don't have it, don't worry, it just show me the past files that I opened, but it's just if it's just the first time that you open, it might be just empty, or it just show you the sample workbooks here, which comes from the Tableau directly to show you some basic tutorials. Here also in the Discover, there are some training materials that are available for the Tableau desktop or Tableau prep. And it's good to know that we have the license for the e-learning of the Tableau as well. So you can just access the workshop materials or the tutorials of the Tableau, official Tableau website with the Clemson license as well. And here, the main thing we have is the connect, which means that gives us some access to how to connect the data to the Tableau desktop. For example, if we want to use a file which is located in your computer, we could use the TOF file, which means that we need to find the file based on the type of that. For example, if it's a Microsoft Excel sheet, if it's a text file, JSON file, or any other type of the file that we have downloaded in our computer, we could just connect it to the Tableau. The other option is the to server, which means that you can just connect Tableau to any server that your data is located there. For example, the Amazon SQL, Esri ArcGIS server, or any other servers that are available here. In the next weeks, we will see how to use these online data servers to fetch the data online without needing to download the data locally in your machine. But for this week, we will only work with local files that we downloaded. So the interface for the main Tableau desktop interface that we will later on see that we could create the visualization has 4 different parts. The part A, I'm not sure if I would be able to make it bigger, be more visible. We have 4 different parts of the Tableau desktop interface. One is just show you the data, different variables, different columns that are available in your data, similar to what we had for the Tableau prep or Microsoft Power BI even previous weeks. And the other one shows the filters and marks, which means that you can just filter your data or change the color or, for example, the shape of your data set based on even customize it with the different variables, or even you can just customize it manually. The columns and rows is just a word that we drag and drop any columns or variables that we want to use for the visualization. And here in the graphs and visualization, we will see the actual graphic or the visualization after we just put some columns on rows, and we could just see the charts and plots in this section for the graphs and visualizations. So these are the brief description of each section that I went through. And so for that, we will jump into the importing the data into the Tableau desktop. But before that, if there is any question, comment about this introductory section. These were just the basic information about what Tableau desktop does and what's the interface, general interface of the Tableau. Any question before jumping into the connecting the Tableau desktop to the files that we downloaded? Okay, so in order to connect Tableau desktop into any file that we downloaded in our local machine, first you need to identify the type. Here, the 3 files that you downloaded are CSV files, which means that they are comma separated values files, and those are identified as text file by Tableau. But the Microsoft Excel, you can just import directly the Microsoft Excel sheets as well if you choose the Microsoft Excel here. So if you click on the text file, you should be able to see these 3 different files that we downloaded. And if you click on open, and it just show me that the Tableau has the connection to that file I have. These are the other files that are available in my folder, which might not be important here, but if you have different files available in your folder, you can just find it, and later on we will see how to connect different files or merge different files together. So after connecting the data to the Tableau desktop, we will see the columns that are available in our data. For example, we have the date, we have the county, state, FIPS, which is a code, and cases and deaths. Again, it's a COVID-19 data set for the US counties, and we have the date for each county in each state based on their different cases and deaths. So these are the different columns that are available in our data. And in order to see the actual numbers, you can just click on the update now and just tries to fetch your data and show the actual numbers that are available in the data set. We had these similar things in the Tableau prep when we try to, for example, change the data type, sort them, or even, for example, rename the different columns, or even create some calculated fields. But we will go through them very briefly here because, as I said last week, the purpose of the Tableau prep was to do all the pre-processing, cleaning of the data in the Tableau prep, and then just import or connect the Tableau desktop to the cleaned data and just use it for the visualization. But there are some limited options available in the Tableau desktop as well, for example, to change or modify the data a little bit. The first thing is to change the data type. You see that each columns that we have here has a data type. For example, the date time, the date columns that we have is identified as date. Usually the Tableau desktop is able to identify the type of the columns that we have automatically, But if it's not identified correctly by the Tableau desktop, you can just change it to whatever you want. For example, make it number, date and time, which means that you have, besides the day, months, year, you have the information for seconds, minutes, and hours as well. And it could be a strings or Boolean, which means it's just the true and false values. But we know that the date is just a date data type. The county, of course, is a string data type because the county and the state are just the names. So we use the string data type for them. And the FIPS and the cases and defs are the numerical values. This one is just the code. And the cases and defs are just, again, numerical values for the cases and deaths of the COVID-19. Before showing some other options here, any question about loading the data, any issue, and any comment or question about changing the data type? Or if you have any error or issue to just import the data into the Tableau desktop? So the first thing that we have here, we could of course rename each columns that you have here. You can just put whatever name that is available, but I'm going to use the default name that were initially in my data set. But if you feel that you might need to just rename the columns, you can just always do it with the rename option. You can create new calculated fields similar to what we had for in the Tableau prep to, for example, combine some of these variables together and create a new customized parameter in your data. For example, let's say I want to just create a new column here to take the ratio of def over cases, which I'm going to call it, for example, fatality rate. And just use the cases over deaths. And similar to what we had for Tableau prep, it's always good to see that the calculation is valid or there is a syntax error in the expression that we wrote here. There are some functions that are available in Tableau desktop. You can just search in the Tableau desktop website, and there are lots of different functions, and the syntax and the name of the functions is similar to what we have for the SQL. So if you're familiar with the SQL, these are the same functions that are available in the SQL and Tableau. So you can just use them as well. I'm not going to click on OK and create actually this variable here because I want to just go through creating this variable later on in the interface of the visualization of the Tableau desktop, but also good to know that we could create the new tabulated field as well here before even jumping into the actual visualization. So I'm going to discard that, but later on we will back and create the exact same parameters for creating a customized visualization. So we saw that how we could just change the data type, rename it, and even for sorting, it's not the actual sorting. It doesn't mean that your data is sorted, but there are some limited options for sorting your data set. For example, if you want to just see the visually or qualitatively, you want to see what's the minimum and maximum values of the cases, deaths. So, or you can just sort the counties or a state alphabetically. So you can just do that here by, for example, clicking here. It will just sort from the minimum, sort from the maximum, and also the default position. But you need to keep in mind that the position or the position of the rows in the data set doesn't matter at all in the Tableau. So the sorting here is just for the sake of the qualitative inspection. But the order of the data, for example, if I just change the order of some of these columns, some of these rows, it doesn't matter to the final visualization I'm going to create. But the sorting I have here is just for the sake of the qualitative inspection. But the sorting, the actual sorting doesn't matter at all in the Tableau desktop visualizations. So these are the sorting, and also we saw that how to create the calculated field or the tabulated field here. But as I said, we will later on jump into the creating calculated field in the actual Tableau desktop visualization interface. And the next thing is that here we could create some groups, which means that we could combine some of these, some of the variables that we have in the columns together for later on for the better visualization. A simple example is that, for example, let's say we have the estate column here, and we could create, for example, some groups for to combine the estates in the northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest, for example, regions. And we could just use that for later on for the visualization that we have. So if you click on create group, we could do that as well in the later on in the actual Tableau desktop visualization interface, but it's also available here even before jumping to the actual visualization. If you click on the create group, first one, you can just create a name for your group. For example, you can just put regions, and or for example, let's say you want to just have southeast or whatever, and choose whatever state or values that you want to choose here. For example, some of these variables that we have for the state. And click OK, and it would just create a group for us that we could just use later on for the visualization to customize our visualization based on different groups. For example, we could change the color or change the size of the visualization that we have based on these groups that we create here. But later on also it's possible to create the groups later on as well. So you don't need to create it necessarily here. So I'm going to delete that. The first thing, the other thing is that it's possible to, for example, if you have a columns that, for example, has, for example, a string that has two parts. Let's say you have a columns that has a string. First part is, for example, A space B, or A comma B, or A semicolon B. You can split those columns furthermore by the split or custom split. The split by default you would use the space, but you can just have a different separator for custom split, and split your columns into different columns that we have. So these are some options that are available for a little bit cleaning or modifying the data that you have. But as I said, we usually use the Tableau prep for cleaning and modifying the data. So as you see that the options here for cleaning the data is very limited in comparison to Tableau prep. So these are for the splitting the columns into different columns based on a separator that you have. For example, if you have a space, comma, semicolon, or dot, or any other separator, you can just furthermore separate your data set. But we don't have that case here because the data is already cleaned, and each column represents those information that we want to actually have later on in our visualization.
I've noticed that we need to have the data as a string to be able to separate that. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because it just works for the string type of data. And if you have a name, for example, let's say South Carolina space Georgia, or even let's say you have the South space Carolina, you can just separate South from Carolina. But it doesn't make sense here because we want to have the state parameter. But it just works for the string data type.
Okay, thank you. And can I ask another question about the so when we did the grouping before the Southeast, I didn't quite understand like the logic of the column that we created, because we had a column named Southeast. Yeah, I think Southeast.
Yeah.
And then for the ones that were not in our selection, we just had, for example, I think let's say Kentucky, and then we just had Kentucky on that field. So
Yes.
that
I believe that I just forgot to click on this group. For example, you can just put whatever name that you want to create and choose some of this and click on the group here, and just you can just put a name or whatever here, for example, region, and after that, it's possible to, for example, you just create a sub, for example, a group of your data set. You just create a group within your column. For example, you create a new column and you name it region, but within that column, you have sub groups which call the Southeast, for example, or whatever you want to call it. For example, I can just choose some other variable here and create another group and choose it, for example, whatever dummy or whatever. And I have two subgroups here. First of all, one is called the Southeast and other one is called dummy. So
okay.
yeah, so that was, I just forgot to just click on the group. So maybe that was a bit vague, but the idea is that you create a new column, and within that column, you create a subgroups, or you just combine some of these variables, unique variables that you have in your column to create some subgroups within your column.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, comment about renaming the data, changing the data type, or creating new tabulated fields, creating groups, or splitting the data? Any issue or any comments that you might have? And the last thing also is that we could pivot. We saw that the same thing in the Tableau prep as well. The pivot is just a transpose of your table. You can choose whatever column, or you can choose all the columns and then do the pivoting. You just change the position of the columns and rows. So if I do that, it would just change the position of the column and rows for me. So, but that might not make sense here. It's just the transpose of your table here. You can just transpose any column that you want to use for the pivoting, or you can just use all the columns that you have. You just basically create a transpose of your table. Any question, any comments before jumping into the next section that we will go through the actual visualization? So in order to jump into the interface of the visualization, you need to create, click on the sheet one. By default, the Tableau desktop would create at least one sheet, which means that in that sheet, you can create any chart or plot, but you can have multiple sheets. You can just have, for example, up to any type of the sheet that you want to have, sheet 1, 2, or any other number of the sheets that you want to create for different type of the visualization or chart. So in any sheet, we will create a chart or graph, and after finally, when we jump into the creating the dashboard, we could combine these sheets together to create a more customized visualization at the end. So if you click on the sheet 1, you see that interface we just went through before. Here you have the data, which show you the different tabular values or the parameters that are available here in your data set. Also, some of them are generated. For example, the Tableau could automatically generate the latitude and longitude from the state and the counties that you have in your data set. And basically just show you the data that you have at hand. If you click on the analytic, there are some options that for the data analytics in Tableau as well. We will go through some of them in this workshop and also in the next weeks for some of more advanced feature of doing some statistical analysis with the Tableau. And here, as I said, we have the filtering, the marks to create, for example, the color, the size of the visualization, or filter some of the data. The column and rows where you just put some of these variables. For example, you can just think as the column as the x-axis and the rows as y-axis for creating the charts and plots. And the actual chart and plots will show up here. So these are the 4 different sections that we have before for the visualization. So the first thing is here we want to create a simple line chart here to show the number of the cases versus the date that we have. So it makes sense that we drag and drop the date table here into the columns as the x-axis. So if you just drag and drop that here and click on here, and the granularity that we have here for the date or the data that we have here is based on day. So the granularity is available daily, weekly, and monthly, but we don't have any information for the yearly here because the data is just for until I believe October 2020. So there was no data for 2021 in this data set. But if you have some data about different years as well, you can have the granularity of the yearly. But for the first one, we will going to use the daily granularity. So I'm going to change that to the year, day. And the difference between this year, quarter, months, and day, and this year, quarter, months, weekly, day is that the first one is the ones that you saw here are the discontinuous year, quarter, months, and day, which means that the Tableau assumes that the data is discontinuous, which means that you can't have any value between them, which just makes your plots or charts instead of a line, it just makes it into different points, which might not be really helpful for the visualization that we want to create here. And the year, quarter, months, weekly, and day that I have here are the continuous date. So I'm going to use the continuous one for better visualization, and also only for the chart that we have here, we could just use only the continuous one for the line graphs or charts that we have here. So I'm going to change it to the day. And the first variable I want to choose for the visualization is the cases. So basically I want to just put the cases into my y-axis. So I'm going to drag and drop the cases into the row. Now, the first thing you might see here is that by default, Tableau would aggregate your data based on some functions. So if you click here on this triangle on the sum cases and go to the measure, you see different functions that are available for aggregating the data. For example, taking average, sum, median, count, or minimum or maximum. or variances or any other type of the functions that are available here. But also, if you come to the analysis and uncheck the aggregated measures, it's also possible to unaggregate the measures as well. We're going to work with the aggregated measures and use the average values here. So basically, it's the average of all data points that we have, regardless of different estates, different counties, versus date that we used as a date. So the next question is, what if we want to actually separate this data for different estate or different counties? That's available. That's a job for marks or filters that we have here. The first one that we will go through here is the filter, to do some filtering to create the filter. And after that, we will use the marks for changing the colors of our lines here. But before jumping to that, any question, any issue about creating this line here, the simple line, or any comment or any question that you might have here?
Sorry, could you explain again what is the difference between when we click on the analysis aggregate measures and when we don't click? So
if you don't have it, it just doesn't do any aggregation on your data. Just your raw data that are put here.
okay.
Yeah, but the aggregation, which means that it just, for example, here in this case, it takes the average over all the counties and states.
Okay.
Yeah, that's regardless of which state or which counties, it just takes the average of all of them together. And I'm just saying, you just take the average over the state or the counties, because I just use the date here to just separate my data based on different dates, or create the charts between different dates. So it doesn't take the temporal or the time average here, because I want to just see the change over time.
So let me see if I understood correctly. So like if we don't put if we uncheck the how's it called again, the aggregate measures, then we just have cases. But when I click on the little arrow, it shows me still like the average. If
When you uncheck the aggregated measure, it should be just a plain case.
Yeah, it is. But if I click there on that little white part, it shows me the
Which part that you see the average?
like if I click here on this and I click
Oh
here,
yes,
it's
yeah.
still average, but
That's
it's
not in effect. Yeah.
but it's not actually average. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just okay.
Yeah. Basically, you just take the average whenever you let it to take the average and check the aggregate measures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And it just show you this way instead of showing you a line, is because it just puts the number of the cases for different estates or different counties on top of each other. That's the reason why we see it in this funky way of not a simple line. You just put all of them on top of each other.
Okay.
That's the reason why we see it this way when we uncheck the aggregated measure. So when you uncheck the aggregated measure, it doesn't do anything on your data. You just put them, stack them together. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question? Any comments? So as I said, right now we just take the average of all the counties, and it doesn't make sense to just take the average of all the counties or all the data that we have here. So the first thing is that maybe we want to just confine our data into, for example, use the South Carolina state, and then break down these cases versus date for some of the counties that we chose, instead of just seeing the average values of all the counties in the US. That might not be really informative. So in order to, for example, confine our visualization to the state of the South Carolina, we need to filter. So that's the job for filters here that we saw. In order to filter any of the data that you have here, you can just drag and drop any of these tables or variables into the filter. So I'm going, because I want to just do some filtering for the state, I'm going to drag and drop the state into the filters. And when I just drag and drop, it just gives me some options to choose here from the list that are available for the states. For example, here I could just choose the South Carolina. That's the simplest option. Or use them all, which doesn't make sense because you want to just maybe choose some of them, and you can just choose all of them, choose none. And the exclude, if you just hit the exclude, the ones that you choose are excluded from the list that you have for the filtering. For example, maybe I have a big list of some data types, and I know that I want to exclude a few of them. So instead of just, for example, trying to check all the data that I want to have, which is really big, I could just exclude the few data points that I have by just check marking the exclude. So that's good for excluding some of the few data points that you want to exclude from your filter or the variable that you have. But here we want to just choose the South Carolina and just click on OK. But before going to that, there are some other options that are available in order to some more customized filtering. For example, you can just type any value. Let's say you don't care if what's the, you don't want to just choose it manually here. You just need to, for example, put if it matches with the South Carolina, I want to just keep it. Or if it starts with S, for example, I want to just keep all the states that are that starts with S. So I could just filter that with that condition, or end with S, or exactly match what I have. For example, let's say the contain, which means that it contains the South, which just gives me the South Dakota and South Carolina. But exactly match, which means that it exactly matches with South Carolina. And the starts and ends with is clear, I believe. It just starts with any string or any type of, any combination of the strings that you have. And again, you can exclude, for example, exclude the ones that start with S, or exclude the ones that contains South or any other type of the data that you have. The next one in the condition is you want to do the filter the states based on the condition that you could create based on different variables. For example, in the condition, I could just filter my states based on the number of the cases. And again, I could just say the average cases, sum, median, minimum, maximum, variance, or whatever, and equal, greater, equal, greater, or any other type of the condition here, and I just put the variable here to just filter the data based on some conditions. Or at the end, I could just use any formula. For example, let's say I want to just use the cases greater than 10, and similar to what we saw in the Tableau prep, we want to create a Boolean expression. Yeah, so I need to, for example, let's say average of the cases average of the cases greater than 10, or average of the, and average of the deaths greater than 1. The difference between using the formula and by field is that in by field you can use only one condition, only use cases, deaths, or whatever data that you have here. But the formula, you can choose create a multiple or complex condition to filter your data. But here we will go through just using the none. And finally, it's also possible to choose the top, for example, 10 estates based on their number of the cases, number of deaths, or their average, sum, median, or any other variable. And even again, we could use the formula here for using creating a top customized top filter here. So these are the different options that are available for filtering the data. But simply, if we go back to the general, I want to just choose simply the South Carolina here. So if I click on OK, it would just filter the data for the South Carolina. Before going through putting the county into the mark and break down the plot into different counties for different colors that we have. Any question about the filtering? Any comment about the filtering that we had here? Well, okay. So now I'm going to, I want to break down again, for example, this is the average cases of all the counties in the South Carolina versus date. I want to break down these average cases in a county level for different counties. So I'm going to drag and drop counties into the mark. And in the county, I choose the color for different colors. So it would break down that average values for different counties that I have here. Again, it's possible to even filter this county in situ without needing to create new filters as we created here for the state. When we click on this triangle here and click on the filter, again, it just shows us the all the variables that are available for the counties. And you might notice that it just shows only the counties that are in the South Carolina. That's because we filtered the state into the South Carolina first. And then if we want to just filter the county, it just shows us only the counties in the South Carolina. So I'm going to just choose the counties of, for example, the Anderson, Greenville, Pickens, and Oconee for, but again, you can just choose any other condition or any other filtering option that we had before we saw before for the state. And I'm doing that because this data visualization for the average cases of the day, it might not be really informative here. So I'm just want to confine my data visualization to the 4 counties that I have here. So I'm going to click on OK. And it would just show me the values for these 4 counties only. So again, you might notice that after I just created a new filter for the county, it just added here to the filters automatically. So it would be added automatically after you create wherever you create the new filter. There are some options to, for example, change the colors of these lines. If you come here, click on this triangle in the county, edit colors, you would be able to change the color, for example, based on some palettes that are available in Tableau, you can choose whatever you want and then click on the assign palette. It would just change the color here. Or even if you want to change the color of each of these data points that you have, you can just choose whatever color you want here. So these are for more customizing the visualization in terms of the colors that we have. So before jumping into the next section, any question about filtering, creating the mark, or creating, changing the colors, or any issue that you might encounter here? Yes, I would just going to repeat the workshop website here. Yes, so that's the link for the workshop I just sent to you. Let's just even, so I'm just going to send to everyone again, in case you missed the link to access the workshop materials. Any other question? Basically, yes. It's possible to use the Control Z here. Let's try that. Yeah, I just Control Z the colors that I put, and the Control Z the filter that I created for the counties. So you can just use the Control Z to back, to undo whatever you did. And in order to have an interactive, you can just here, you can just, this one would redo and this one would undo. So the Control Z and Control Y are these undo and redo here. So I'm going to back to that. Yeah. So that would redo all the things that I had before without needing to just go through them again. Any other question, any other comment? Okay. So we saw that how to create the visualization for a number of the cases that we have here, filter some of the data points that we want to create. And the next thing is that to combine different views or different charts. Here we created a charts for the average cases versus the day of the date, or the dates in the day granularity. Let's say I want to see the number of the deaths also besides the cases as well. So that's simple. I could just drag and drop deaths into the rows again and change it to average. So that would create two different charts in a single view. Later on, we will see that how to overlay them together. So right now you see the number of the deaths and number of the cases versus day in a separate charts, but it's also possible to overlay these two charts together. For example, just overlay these lines into the first one or the second one. And the next thing is that we saw that before, how to create the tabulated field or create a new field in our data set, which means that we can just use a customized formula for creating new columns. And I said that later on also we will see that. So I just discard that fatality rate that we had before for the ratio of the death over the cases. But here is also possible to create that. In order to create a new calculated field, you can just right click here in the data section, data pane or data panel, and click on the create calculated field. Again, similar to what we had before, you can just choose whatever name for your field and choose any formula that you want to use here and make sure that the calculation is valid. So that would give us the ability to customize or combine some of the fields that are available here to create a more informative visualization that we have here. So I'm going to click on OK, and you see that the fatality rate comes here, and the data type is identified as the number decimal correctly. And again, even I could drag and drop this one here. And I have three different visualization of the cases, deaths, and the fatality rate in a single view. And later on, we will see that how we could overlay them together. Before jumping into the next section, any question, any comment about creating a new calculated field or creating new charts or new plots in a single view? Okay. So that's the one that we used here for creating that chart. And the last thing that we had here is the extracting the trend lines, which means that we can do some simple linear regression in Tableau desktop to extract the trend lines and see if the data, for example, goes up or goes down. Generally, you just do simple linear regression over the data that we have. In order to create that trend lines, you can go to the analysis, trend lines, and show all trend lines. It would create these linear regressions for different charts I had here and different categories of the data, for example, different counties that I had here. So these lines are extracted based on the linear regression. And also there are some simple variables that are available to edit here for the trend lines. If you go back to the analysis trend lines and edit all trend lines, click on the edit all trend lines. You can use a linear model, you can use the exponential or polynomial. These are the simple regression models. And you can just separate those trend lines based on the different counties, but you can just have a single one for all the counties that you want to have. So you can just break it down at the county level, or you can just have a total trend line here. And you want to show that as a tooltip, which means that, for example, if you go here, it just show you some information about the trend line. For example, the formula that is extracted, the RS squared, which means that the goodness of the fit, and the p-value, which means that the fit is really close to the linear approximation here. And you can also have the confidence intervals. We just show you the confidence intervals as well if you make it available here, which means that the 95% confidence interval of these trend lines. And also you might have, similar to what had before for the counties, you had different colors for the trend lines. And also you can just calculate the values of different, for example, intercept or the other values of the linear or other parameters of the regression here. To show it on the tooltip, by just show the recalculated line. And also force the line to go through the zero intercept, or if you know that the regression should just start from the zero, you can just force it to go through zero as well. So these are the simple options that are available for the trend lines options. And after that, you can just click on OK. And if you want to analyze the output of the model, you can just, again, go to the analysis trend lines and describe trend line models. And here it would just give you some information about if the linear regression or any regression that you had here had accuracy enough. For example, by looking at the R squared, it just show you the sum squared error, mean squared error, and some other information about your trend lines that you created here. So any question, any comment about trend lines?
Could you show again the previous thing that you did?
Which one? The describe trend lines or
For that, was it edit? Before this,
the edit was
it the edit?
Yes. The trend lines option, the edit trend lines option show you the trend lines options for choosing the model type. It could be linear, exponential, polynomial, or any other type of the data that you have. And also some other factors, for example, doing the regression for all the data or just break it down for the counties that you have, or any other options that might be available in trend lines.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, comments about? Okay. So that was the last thing that we had in this section. Before jumping into the next section, I'm going to show you how to connect another data set here. That's the last thing that we would have in this section in order to connect another file or merge another file with the existing connection that we have. So the idea is that we want to use that GA counties.csv file and merge it with the other files that we had here, for example. And I'm going to open a new Tableau specifically for showing how to merge that. So similar to what we had at the beginning, I want to just import or connect to the SC counties data that I had. That's the first file that I imported here. So the idea is that import another file and connect it to the existing file and be able to do the visualization for both of them in a single workbook here. So the other one is the GA counties. So I can drag and drop, or any other type of the files I have here that just Tableau gives me access to. But the purpose is to just use these specific files, GA counties, and drag and drop it here in the need more data. In order to merge this or union these data sets, it needs to know that which field is the same as the other one. For example, the case in the first one is the same case as the other one. And for example, you could just match any other columns that you have in the first file with the columns of the second file that you have here. Or you can just say it's equal or it's greater, or any other type of the relationship that you want to create with the second file that you have. So after the connection, when there is no error, you would see both of the values of, for example, the SC and the Georgia counties in the same data panel here, and you can just create the visualization for both of them, similar to what we had for the single file we had before. So the idea is that to combine some of these files together and create a more customized data source for the visualization. Yes, here for the example, we just combine these two files together. But for a more general one, you need to make sure that, for example, have, instead of, for example, call the files SC or Georgia, you need to have a state here and say that the state variable is the same here. So to just put or union these two files together based on the column that we had. So similar thing that we did it for Tableau prep when we wanted to do a union for different type of the moving averages. So we are basically trying to do the same thing here as well. So that's the base, that's the same idea that we had last week for unioning the different moving average types. Yeah, but I agree that you can't merge it simply by, for example, here in this case to show that the South Carolina is equal to the Georgia, which is not correct. Yeah, but it was just for the example of how to load the second file and just maybe match some of the columns that we had for in the first file to the second file. But the idea is similar to what we had before for the Tableau prep for unioning or merging different data sets together. Any other question? Any other comments? So I'm going to remove this workbook and go back to the one that we created here for showing how to create a dashboard for that.
So one question, the part of like the relationship that it's called in the Tableau desktop would be, we didn't need to do this here, right? We could have just done that in the Tableau prep.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
okay, and then, okay.
Yeah, you can just, instead of using the Tableau desktop for merging the data set, you always can use the Tableau prep. That's a thing that is recommended, to use the Tableau prep for merging or creating different data sets. But for the Tableau desktop, it's better to just use the file for the visualization. So, but
Okay.
you can do similar thing in the Tableau desktop in some sense as well. Yeah.
And then when we are choosing here the field that we want to use as a common field, so we have to, I also got a little confused. So we would choose something, wouldn't it be null values? Sorry, I got confused about. Could you
in the relation to the first and the second file, you need to just tell the Tableau what's the relation. Is one column is equal to the other columns that you have in other file? Or for example, you want to say that the one column is greater than the other column in the other file, or it's smaller. So you need to just have some sort of relationship between the first and the second file that you want to merge together. And for a more practical example, let me give you another one that we had here for merging.
So here what we did was basically stack them one.
Yes, stack them together. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But for a more practical one, I'm going to put this one. That's again a Tableau material that we created a year ago, similar to what we had here. So let me find when
So what we did is equivalent to if we had taken the US data set and selected just the South Carolina and Georgia.
right, yeah. I just put this link, so that's also gives you a more practical example of how to actually merge the two data sets, and then we do the similar thing here, but in those two data set in that link that you need to download at the beginning, you have the exact same columns in file, and you have the exact same column in the first file. And then when you merge it, you just correctly identify them and just merge them together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other question, comment before jumping into the creating the dashboard for based on the data visualization that we created here? So the idea of the dashboard, as I said, is to create some visualization interactively, create dashboards that could be shared. You can share your visualization with other users. And the advantage of the dashboard, instead of, for example, saving the Tableau workbook file and send the file to somebody else, is that the dashboards could be embedded into the website, and anybody could access the dashboard without even having the Tableau installed in their computer, and even without having the Tableau license. So that's the advantage of the dashboard. It could be embedded into any online platform and could be just used by any user, go through the visualization without need to, for example, go through all the steps that you did for creating that visualization. It just see the final product of your visualization in some sense. Yeah. So that's the basic idea of the dashboard. Here we will create a simple basic dashboard, but in the next weeks, we will go through more customizing the dashboards, adding some features, filters to the dashboards, and give the user ability to explore your data more interactively. So in order to create a new dashboard, you can come back to the visualization that you had here, and in the right bottom, in the left bottom of your window, you can just click on the new dashboard to create a new dashboard. And you just create a dashboard. We can have multiple dashboard, and later on we will see that even we could combine multiple dashboard into a story that could give us some ability to create a really more big customized visualization later on. So the sheets here, the sheets that you created here, we have one sheet, but you can have multiple sheets, and you can have customize your visualization by having the multiple sheets visualization here and drag and drop it here in your dashboard. But here we have one sheet that we could drag and drop here. And it just puts the visualization here. And later on, if you share this visualization with other users, they could just see your visualization end product of your visualization without needing to go through all the steps that you did for creating this visualization. There are some customization. For example, you can just change the title for example, here, the COVID-19 data in North Carolina. You can choose whatever. And also, for example, you can just choose some values, for example, for the state, or instead of, for example, South Carolina, I can just put the state, COVID-19 data in a state. And whenever in the filter I change the state in my filter, it would be changed automatically here because I didn't wrote the South Carolina manually. I just used the data from the state. So if I click apply, just show me the South Carolina. But for the filtering here, you had the filtering here for the state. Whenever you change this filter, this South Carolina also would be changed. So for example, let's change, edit this filter to Georgia, for example. It would change to Georgia automatically. So those are some ways to customize your visualization and make it more interactive. And also you can change, for example, the axis here you have, if you click on the Y or X axis, you have here for Y axis, I could fix the range I want to use for my visualization, or choose the automatic one, or include the 0 or not include the 0, or you can choose whatever range that you want to for the visualization. The scale could be reversed or just use the default one, or even it could be logarithmic here for the number of the cases or any x-axis that you choose. And also I can change the title here, cases, for example, or instead of the av cases that are put by the Tableau automatically. For example, I can just change this one also to depths. And also same thing for the x-axis, you can have the fixed range or reverse them, or change the title of that axis as well. So we just change that. So the final dashboard that you create, you want to just share it with the other users and be able to publish basically your dashboard. So here in the server, it's possible to publish your dashboard. Before publishing the dashboard, you need to publish your data source. So I'm going to publish the data source here first. I'm behind the firewall. I'm on campus. I'm not sure if it just let me publish it or not. I believe it doesn't let me to publish that. So basically, in order to publish that, you need to publish your data source first, and then save your dashboard to the Tableau public in order to publish it finally. So that would give you ability to publish and share your visualization with the other users.
I don't have the server option on my bar on top. However, I've noticed that when I click on File and Save to, there's the option Save to Tableau Public. So should I use that?
Where you have the option to save to Tableau public.
So I don't have the server like you do. However, in my file, I have an option called Save to Tableau Public on the file option, on the file part.
It's a different version that you use, possibly. But yes, if it just gives you the same option, save to Tableau public, similar to what we have in the server Tableau public, you can publish it to the Tableau public, yeah.
Okay.
And for that question, if you don't want to publish your data source, you can, but at least you need to publish your data source locally in your computer to be able to publish it into the Tableau public. If you want to hide your data source and doesn't give the user ability to download the underlying data for your dashboards. Yes, if you want to just hide your data source, you can just publish your dashboard. But as I said, if you don't publish your data source locally, I believe, it just gives you some errors that it cannot push your dashboard to the Tableau public. In the journal article, I don't think so, because it doesn't give you the ability to embed the HTML into the journal publications. But I embedded a dashboard into the website here. So that's the dashboard I embedded interactively in the website here. So that's the actual dashboard in the website. So I'm going to put the link for this dashboard here into the chat. And here, I just use the HTML to embed this dashboard in the website I have here. And you see that you cannot download my the underlying data here for the dashboard I created. But you can interact with the data or see the visualization, see some information. And even download the PDF version of my dashboard. So that's the way I embedded this dashboard into the website by using the HTML. But I don't think so it's possible to embed it in the journal publications. Any question, any comment about dashboard? In the next weeks for the Tableau intermediate and advanced session, we will see how to more customize this dashboard, even create a story by creating multiple dashboards and publish them into the website and share with the other users. Okay. So the last section is going through the homeworks. If you want to receive the certificate of the completion, as I said, sorry for not sending out the certificate of the completion of three previous workshops that we had. It's really busy. I had 80 plus visualization, but I'm going through all the visualization, and hopefully we'll send out the certificate as soon as possible. And for this workshop, similar to what we had previous week for Tableau Prep, you need to download that data set for the COVID-19 data for all the countries in the world from this same link that you had last week. But if you have it, if you downloaded last week, you don't need to download it again. But for the people that don't have it and just join the workshop this week, you can just download the data from this link and go through the homework to create a similar visualization for total cases, new cases in different location and the continents, and also finally create a dashboard that just incorporate the trends for the total cases, new cases, and the fatality rate similar to what we defined here by creating a new calculated field. So I'm going to put the link of the homework also in the chat in case you don't have it. So you can just go through this homework and send the visualization and receive the certificate of the completion after that. So any question, any comment about the homework?
Yeah, I got one.
Okay, sure.
So for okay, okay, I see the link. I have a question with last week's homework.
Okay.
Because I did have the two like output spreadsheets. Do I send those two spreadsheets to you, or what do I do with them?
Yeah, you can just send the spreadsheets to me. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, is the deadline June 2nd, which is today or yesterday?
For the last week, it was today, but I could combine if you have difficulty. The the two deadlines for the next week to just have the visualization of creating, going through this homework for this workshop, and the last week if you need more time.
Okay, because like I do have the, because like I was following the instructions with the homework, and I did create the two output files, you know, one for the 7 week and one for the 3 weeks. It was just a question of like, do I just email and send you those two output files?
Yes, yeah.
Excel, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can just send those Excel sheets. Yeah.
Also, is there a link to this recording because I showed up later?
Yeah, I will share the recording of this week and last week tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so basically last week's homework, all I have to do is to send those two like output Excel sheets. And for this homework, it's sending
The dashboard. The dashboard or the final workbook in the Tableau workbook that you saved here. You can save your Tableau workbook here, for example. Click on save and choose whatever name you want and just send that file to me. That's fine.
Okay.
Any other question? Any other comment?
On last week's activity, I had some difficulty doing the combined data set for, I was able to do like the weekly, bi-weekly, 10 days, but the combined, when we do the joints,
Right.
I had some difficulty doing that.
It shows any error, or what was the difficulty?
I think I wasn't.
Is it possible to take a screenshot of if it just shows error, or it just doesn't? If it's possible to take a screenshot and send that to my email, I would look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I will wait a couple of minutes in case you have any question. I will be happy to answer that. Other than that, you can just feel free to just leave.
Oh yeah, one other question.
Sure.
So for the last week's homework, I do have the Tableau prep builder, I guess, chart to create those two output files. Do you also want that, or is it just simply those two like spreadsheets?
Yeah, that's only the two spreadsheets. That's enough. Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, I have nothing else.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this workshop. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Sorry. After everybody is gone, I think I may like to talk to you.
Yes, sure. Do you have any question?
It's just I was late in joining the trainings, and I don't know. May you send me the the videos, the recorded videos, so that I can trace back, because I received the presence of this training about this week on Monday, I think.
Yes,
On Monday.
I would send the recordings of this week workshop and last week workshop tomorrow.
Okay. Also, I'm not a student in Clemson, but I'm working with the Center for Connected Mobility.
Okay.
Within a year, I've been told that this training, then I decided to join up. I don't know how are we going to submit the homeworks, But but I've been given the Crimson credentials. I have the email, I have the username, I have all of them. But
Okay, that's good.
I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna submit them.
For the submitting of the homeworks, you can just shoot me an email. Let me put my email into the chat. You can just shoot or send your files to this email address. I just put into the chat.
Okay. I'm a student at South Carolina State.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I will try to trace the videos so that I can catch up. Hope I will
Thank
do
you.
my homeworks too on time.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, comments other than that? So thank you and have a good day.